Okay, good night, everyone, and a wonderful Pesach to all of you. As we have our Motzi Yom Tov marathon, because of everybody's diligence, we don't have to do 4 blot tonight, only 2 blot. As we welcome in Yitzi and Morty Muller, we welcome in A.B. Spry, Dr. Block, Chaim Kramer, Yisrael Fisher, Mark Frankel, Shimon Klein, Mel Zachter, Barry Cement, Shelley Zeitlin, Menachem Umansky, Michal, Ruvain Shanet, Mo Kushner, Yaakov Warman, Marshall Castle, Shimon Deer, Rabbi Kranz, Naftali Jablin, Nachman Chapler, Ilya Shutman, Chaim Braun, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, A.B. Arbach, Abe Arbach, and I think this is David Helfgott, we are broadcasting from the Armin Hotel in Stamford, Connecticut, and my shver, who is in the hospital now, had to go in on Yom Tov. We should have him in mind. Avigdor Aryeh ben Rivka. He should have a refuah shalema b'sei shecher Yisrael. We should continue to learn from me. Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel should have a refuah shalema b'sei shecher Yisrael. We are starting at the Mishnah on the bottom of Hey Amid Beis. Mishnah on the bottom of Hey Amid Beis. Al pi shnayim eidim, oy shloisha eidim yumas hameis. By the testimony of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, we put to death the condemned. Now, the question is, if we know we do it with 2 witnesses, we surely do it with 3 witnesses. So, why does it have to say 3? To juxtapose 3 to 2. Just like 3 witnesses could come and prove that 2 witnesses are false, that's a big chiddush. So if the 3 dastardly witnesses, Mark, Barry, and Marshall, say that Dr. Black killed someone, and Menachem and Michal say that the 3 of them were with them in Dubai, 2 can disqualify 3, which is a big chiddush.
I thought I got off the hook tonight.
Not only that, how do we know even if it's even against 100? Talmud Leimer Eidim, because it says the extra word Eidim. Reb Shimon says, Mashnayim ein narogin, achiyu shneim zaymemin. Just like we just learned earlier with the Maisa of Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, that we don't put them to death unless both Mark and Barry are Zaymimim. In the case, if it's Mark, Barry, and Marshall, we have to find all 3. Just like Mashnaim ein narogin, achiyu shneim zaymemin, af shloish, if there are 3 witnesses, ein narogin, achiyu shloish zaymemin. If there's 100, that we won't put them to death until all 100 are Zaymim. Tam Leimer Eidim. Rabbi Kiva says, Leiba Shlishi Lahakel. The 3rd time, when it says Shloisha Eidim, the 3rd one isn't coming to make it more lenient. Ela Lahachmer Alav, the last is Dinoi Kiyotze. This means that if Mark and Barry testified that Dr. Black killed someone, and then Marshall said, I also testified. Marshall is not needed. We're going to put them to death with just Mark and Barry. If we find all 3 to be Zaymimim, even though Marshall was just cream, even though he was extra, we put Marshall to death too. As the Gemara says, Rabbi Kiva and to make Marshall's fate just like Mark and Barry. If we see that we punish an accessory to a crime, like the principles of the crime, that those that join in to those that are leading a mitzvah are rewarded like those that lead a mitzvah. And always you have two people that are working on a whole project here in the Arm, and they have a wonderful organization called Kanfei Nisharim, where they help single mothers, and they give them support. And so they set up a whole organization, and Mark adds and gives them money. So he didn't do all the work, he just helped them, but he's rewarded like the originators of the project. Now, we also learned something else. If there's three witnesses, Mark, Barry, and Marshall, and one of them is found to be a gambler, you know who the one would be. One of them is found to be a gambler, or a person who does business on Shvius. Then he disqualifies the whole set. Let's see it inside. If you found one of them a relative or apostle, Eidus and Betela, the Eidus falls apart. Af Shloisha, since they're one set, Nim Se'echem Karv apostle, Eidus and Betela. Menayin afilu mei, even if it's 100, Kamalaymer Eidim. Now please don't get disappointed if you see the size of the next stop, please. It's not my fault. Amar Rabbi Yaisi, Bamed v'amamurim b'dinei nefashos. This is true only by a capital crime, because by a capital crime we want to be lenient. It says v'tzilu ha'eda, we try to save the condemned man. Bamed v'amamurim b'dinei nefashos. Abo b'dinei mamanis, if we find one of them to be a Karv apostle, tiskayim ha'edus b'shar, we could still count the other two witnesses, Barry and Mark. Rabbi says, both by monetary and by capital crimes, if we find one of them to be a karev, the whole set falls apart. But that's only if he meant to give witness. In other words, let's say Mark and Barry and Mark's brother saw a killing. Now, what's Mark's brother supposed to do? He saw it. But he's going to disqualify, because then it's going to be one of them as a relative. So says Rebbe, if Mark's brother doesn't intend to testify, then he doesn't discredit it. Where all three gave warning. But where Mark's brother didn't give a warning, he doesn't disqualify just because he saw it. Because otherwise, what would be if two brothers together with Barry see a killing? That's going to disqualify the testimony. So as long as Mark's brother doesn't give a warning, he doesn't mean to be a part of the witness, and therefore he doesn't discredit the set. Amar Rava. Rava says that when do we say that 100 witnesses are considered like two, and that you have to make all of them zaymimin? That's only where they all testify Taik Kedei Dibber of the testimony. So the Gemara says, how could 100 people testify Taik Kedei Dibber? Amalei Rav Achim and Difti Ravina Michtei Taik Kedei Dibber Heichi Dami. What's Taik Kedei Dibber? Kedei Shelas Talmud Rav, to be able to say Shalom Alecha Rebbe or Shalom Alecha Rebbe Yomairi. Meya Tuvahave, but the time it takes to say 100 testimonies is a lot more than Shalom Alecha Rebbe Yomairi. So Amalei, so he says, no, each one has to be Taik Kedei Dibber of the one before. Amalei Kol Chad V'Chad B'Taik Kedei Dibber Shel Chaveira. So Mark gives testimony, and then Barry gives testimony. Marshall gives Taik Kedei Dibber to Barry. Shelley gives Taik Kedei Dibber to Marshall, and etc. Then they're all considered one set, and therefore, in order to make them Zaymimim, you have to make the whole kit and caboodle Zaymimim. Rabbi Akiva says, You know, it's about time. I did welcome everybody, but I see Chaim Braun came in, and we welcome him. Hey, Barbara Arbach. Nice to have 28 Zoomers joining us on this Chol Hamoed evening. Thank you very much. Tomorrow night and the rest of the week, 8:15. I know in the shul calendar it says 8:05, but it's a mistake. It's 8:15. The whole week is 8:15. Shir, 8:15. One of the nights we're going to have to do two blat in order to get ahead, but not twice two blat, only one time two blat. I'll let you know when that is. It's probably going to be complicated now because I have to travel probably in from Connecticut to visit my shver, see how he's doing in the hospital. So it is very likely that the shir will take place from Lakewood. I can't stay in my house because my house is stick, but I could stay in our basement. We made the basement Pesach just in case. But we might stay in the basement of our house. So it might be that the share will be from Lakewood tomorrow, but I don't know. Rabbi Kiva Aimer loy ba shlishi lahakel el lachmer or mashnayim. Now, here, Rabbi Kiva asks. Here, the Gemara asks an interesting question. He says that if Marshall, Barry, and Mark testify, if we find one of the three relative, that the whole thing falls apart. So the question is, if Mark, Barry, and Marshall testified that Dr. Black killed Chatzkel, well, the killer and the victim are there. And it's Nagea B'Davar, so they're puzzled, so why don't they puzzle the whole thing? Amalei Rapapa Labaya Lamiata Horeg Yatzel, the killer, Dr. Black, should save, because he saw the killing, he saw what he did, and he's a relative. Excuse me, not Chatzkel, the defendant, the victim saw, and it's about him, so he's puzzled. Aedis says the Gemara, Kishargu me'achurav, they killed him from behind, so he didn't see it. So the Gemara says, well, nirva yatzel, if somebody is being sodomized, so he sees it, so he should disqualify because he's a karev. Kishirava me'achurav, they sodomized him from the back. But Hayreg v'Roiveya Yatzilu, Dr. Black, who killed, or the sodomizer, he sees it, and he's a karev, so he should disqualify the whole thing. Ishtik, he's quiet. Kiyasa kami derava amalei yokum davar. Where do we say al pishnayim edim or shloishim edim yokum davar? It's talking about the people that are establishing in court what happened, and that's not the killer and not the victim. It's only those people that are establishing it in court. Because otherwise, ma yasu shnei achim. So, when we had Mark, his brother, and Barry, heichi amrina lahu, what do we tell to Mark's brother? Amarav hachi amru lahu. We say to him, lemichsei asisu. When you went there, did you just go to see what happened? Oy la'asude asisu. Or did you come to testify? If he says, I came to testify, so then it applies. They do some betela. If he says, I just came to see it, What should you do if two brothers saw the same thing? Itmar, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Halacha Reb Yaisi, that the law I think we're just joined by Berish. Good to see you, Berish. Says the Gemara, as we're holding on the bottom of Vav and Aleph, says the Gemara, Itmar Amr Yehuda Shmuel Halacha Reb Yaisi, that the law that if we find one of the set no good, we disqualify the whole set, that's only by capital crimes. But by monetary crimes, we accept the rest of the witnesses. Rav Nachman Amar Halacha Karebi, that we disqualify the whole set even by a monetary situation. Okay, we start the final Amid, Vav and Beis, with the help of Hashem. And remember, after the Shir, we will do 2 Mishnah Yomises. I actually did Fridays and Shabbos before Yom Tov, so we're going to have to do the Mishnah Yomis of Sunday and Monday. We'll do that when we finish the Daf, Be'ezus Hashem. If Mark and Barry see Dr. Black do a killing from one window, Ushnayim royin mechalayin zeh, while Yaakov and Marshall see it from another window. The echad maser by be'emtza, and Shimon gives Dr. Black a warning in the middle of the 2 windows. Bizman shemixas royin elu es elu. If, let's say, Mark could see Marshall, and Marshall could see Mark, even though Barry can't see Yaakov, and vice versa, Hari elu edus echas, they're one set, and therefore you could only make them zaymimim if you make all of them zaymimim. And if you find one of them disqualified, then the whole thing is disqualified. But v'im lav, if they can't see each other, then hari elu shtei edyos, then there are 2 different set of witnesses. Lefikach im nimtzas achas mehem zaymimis. If, let's say, we find Mark and Barry to be zaymimim, but Marshall and Yaakov have a good testimony, so hu v'hein neragin, Dr. Black and they are supposed to be put to death. Vashniya Petura, and Yaakov and Marshall, they're clean. Now,
Can I ask a question on that?
yes.
If one pair was found to be Zimmerman, then obviously both pairs weren't there together. They never could have seen each other. So what's the Mishnah trying to bring?
No, according to their claim, they saw each other.
Oh, according to the claim.
Right,
Okay.
right. Now, Rabbi Yossi says the whole thing isn't applicable because each witness has to give Hasra. Just Shimon in the middle giving Hasra is not good. Rabbi Yossi, we don't put Dr. Black to death. You need 2 witnesses to give him a warning. It has to be by the mouth of the 2 witnesses. Now, others learn, why does it say al pi shnayim edim? To tell us that Bezdin has to hear it directly from their mouth, not through an interpreter. In other words, if they only speak Sarajevo, the Bezdin has to understand Sarajevo. Davar achar al pi shnayim edim shaloitei Sanhedrin shemas mepiyat turgeman. They can't hear it from an interpreter. Now, how do we know If Mark is in one window and Barry is in another window, and they don't see each other, how do we know that that's a testimony that can't be combined? Amar Rav Zutra bar Tuvia Amar Rav, Minayin le'edus miyuchedes. How do we know a testimony that is separated? Mark sees it from one window, Barry sees it from another window, they can't see each other. How do we know she psula? How do we know that it's disqualified? Shenemar lo yumas al pi eid echad. We don't put him to death by the testimony of one witness. Now, simply, that's superfluous. My echad. Eid echad mamish, there's only one witness. Mereisha shamin, that we know, because the pasuk says al pi shnayim eidim, only if it's two witnesses. Elamai echad, echad, echad. It means each one is independent, and they can't be combined, they can't see each other. We won't put Dr. Black to death. Tanya nami hachi, lo yumas al pi eid echad, lo havi shnayim shirayin oisay echad mechalayin zeh ve'echad mechalayin zeh. If each one sees from a different window, ve'ein royin zeh zeh, and they don't see each other, she'ein mitzdarfen. V'loi oid, not only that, el afilu b'zeh achar zeh b'chalayin echad. Even if Mark sees first, and Barry sees after from the same window, ein mitzdarfen, they don't combine. So now that doesn't sound like a chiddush. Because if Mark sees first and Barry sees afterwards, they're not seeing the same thing. Says the Gemara, what do you mean even? If Mark and Barry see from different windows, they're both seeing the same thing at the same time. When it's one after another, that each one only saw a part. One saw part of it, and the other saw part. Of course they can't combine. Says no, it's talking about where they both saw somebody sleep with a married woman. So it makes no difference if they each one saw adultery. But since they didn't see it at the same time, they can't combine. Amar Rava im hayaraya es hamasra. If, however, Shimon is in the middle and giving a warning, and they both saw Shimon, or Masra Raya his son, or Shimon saw both of them, then mitzdarfen, then they could combine. The Amar Rava is very interesting. Let's say Dr. Black is killing someone, and the man he's killing gives him a warning. Or let's say he got a warning from a shade, from a demon. They saw it at clawed feet. Even if the man he's killing gives him the warning, even if it's from a shade. Obviously, this is not going according to Rabbi Yaisi, who says that the witnesses have to give the warning. Now, Amar Rav Nachman, Eidus miyuchedes, where Mark and Barry saw from different windows and they didn't see each other, ksheira b'dinei mamanas. That's acceptable if it's a financial matter. If they saw Dr. Black stealing, they could give testimony. Why? Dichsiv lo yumas al pi eid echad. B'dinei nefashis hu de'en ksheira. That eid echad, where each one is separate, is not good by dinei nefashis. Aval b'dinei mamanas ksheira. Says Gemara, Maskler Rav Zutra, Elami Ma'ata, B'dinei nefashis tatzel. If we say that there's an idea that separate edus is enough for dinei mamanas, so then we should allow the separate edus to be enough to save a condemned man. Remember, we said that if Mark and Barry are looking from one window, and Marshall and Yaakov are looking from another window and they don't see each other, so we say we put to death Mark and Barry, but Marshall and Yaakov, we don't put them to death. But if we say that we can combine for Dinei Mamonis, so then we should combine to save Marshall, to save Mark and Barry, because it says in the pasuk Vitzilu es ha'eda, and there, if we do combine them and we don't find two of the said Zaimimim, we don't put them to death, as the Gemara says, Masker Abzatra el mi'ata b'dinei nefashis tatzel. Alama Tanan Hu V'Hei Neragin, Dr. Black, and the two witnesses, that's Mark and Barry, are put to death, but Yaakov and Marshall are safe. But if we do say by Mominus we put witnesses together that don't see each other, then to save Mark and Barry, we should put them together and then say that one set and part of the set wasn't Zaimim, and we should save them. Kasha. It says that's a kasha. Reb Yaisi says, no, we need the witnesses to give the warning. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rab Papa Labaya Miyaslei the Reb Yaisi Hai Svara. Does Reb Yaisi hold that the witnesses have to give the warning? V'tanan Reb Yaisi Aimer Hasoinei Nerag. If Dr. Black hated Chatzkel, he's put to death without witnesses, without Hasra. Because we say it's clear that it was premeditated because he hates it. He's like he's ready to do it and warned. So you see, Rabbi Yaisi holds you don't need the Adam to give Asra. Amalei Ahu Rabbi Yaisi bar Yehudahi. That's a different Rabbi Yaisi. That's Rabbi Yaisi bar Yehuda. The Tani Rabbi Yaisi bar Yehuda Aimer Chaver a Talmid Chacham Ein Tzarech Asra. Because officially nitna Asra lahafkum and shaygei lamezid. Asra is only given to differentiate whether he did it unwittingly or whether he knew that it was forbidden. If we know that he knows that it's forbidden, so then we don't need to give Asra. So here also, where we know that it's premeditated because he's a Sainei, Rabbi Yaisi would hold that you don't need to give Asra. Okay, we'll stop over here, Rabbi Yisai. We're going to now do the Mishnah Yaimis.